Yes.
All right.
Alrighty. I went out and jogged in place for a second so that I could, because I can't sit still for that long, and I was sitting still for a long time, so I totally feel you if you need to run around a little bit. It's hard to do laps in here, but I think you guys can do it, and that's totally okay with me.
Do it out there.
So, the right process to drive effective marketing. This is a process that we use at my firm, but story, design, action, and tools is what we're basically going to talk about. First off, I wanted to thank OneOC for just hosting this great, and I think really, really important conversation.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you, guys. Also, thanks Dan and Libby for such great material. You guys, there was a lot of good stuff in there, and I hope you have good notes. I hope you took notes, plus on my website, and I'll give you the link there. I'll have a link for you guys to download the slide deck and some other notes and things like that, as well as some links to anything we talked about, stuff like that. Excuse me. Getting over being sick, I apologize.
I've got cough drops.
Awesome. So a quick show of hands, though. This is going to help me out greatly. How many of you derive more than 50% of your budgets from major donors, grants, or contracts? Awesome.
Yeah.
That means that you're probably going to ignore half of what I say, and it's to your detriment. Please do not. It's very, very important that you hear this, and I will try to help you contextualize it. Bug the heck out of me this whole time, though, please. Ask me lots of questions. Ask me to help you contextualize. It sounds like I'm speaking to a different audience. I'm not. I'm talking to you guys. You guys just have been, as Ann kind of talked about, brainwashed to think that this doesn't apply. It does. How many of you know the terms acquisition, cultivation? Okay, this is a nonprofit world. These are nonprofit terms. Okay, acquisition is the process of building your database. Cultivation is the process of getting money from said database. Very important, and it's a phrase that you'll want to ask. Generally, you'll ask me a lot of questions. How does this fit into that paradigm? Maybe today you won't, but those are important terms regardless. So you probably want to know who I am. You probably want the slide to
Point up there.
Point.
but it's there. That's weird, because the computer is there.
It's magical.
I don't understand the world. So, Intersection, that's my company. We, and Libby kind of talked about what we do, basically. So we work specifically with cause-driven organizations, government agencies, nonprofits, social enterprise businesses, essentially on marketing, but not marketing like you thought about it when you walked into the room, marketing like she described it, from conception all the way to distribution. And so we help with program development, we help with development, as in raising money, and then we also help with process-oriented things like making those processes better. Let's see, 511 is a small community development corporation headquartered in Santa Ana. Puts together small things like Laundry Love is the most well-known one of ours. If you've seen the paper, they write about it once in a while, things like that.
Wait, who knows Laundry Love? Tell them about Laundry Love.
All right, Laundry Love is basically a party thrown at a laundromat once a month in Santa Ana. The community comes out and gets their laundry done, and we try to make sure that lots of people like you guys are there to connect them with your services, but then additionally we make sure that there's fun, there's music, there's dancing, there's games for the kids. We have a good time, we throw a party. So it's a good experience for everybody. And I joke that this is my lab. Everything that I do here is largely tested and refined here. So
What is it called again?
Laundry Love Santa Ana is our most well-known initiative, and that one, it's got its own website and everything, because its brand is actually much stronger and more well-developed than 511.
So is it laundrylove.net?
LaundryLoveSantaAna.com. And all that will be on this website. And so you guys will be able to go to crt.gd/OneOC within the next week. And crt.gd, create good, crt.gd/OneOC. And there'll be notes, the slide deck, some other fun stuff like
That's
that.
because we don't know how to do that with our website.
So I'll make sure that that's available for you guys within the next week. Or close to the next week. I apologize if it takes longer, but hopefully it'll be done by the end of the day. Who I am, that was what I do. This is the more important to me. It's who I am, husband, father, got 2 kids, 4 and 6.
Perfect hair.
Yeah, that's my hair. That's my
Are you
4-year-old.
the artist too?
No, that's one of my designers did my slide deck. So I went back through and kind of refined the whole thing, but
Get
all
the hair,
all
get the
that.
hair taller.
Yeah, I drew in the hair. No, just kidding. But no, all the sketches are from one of my designers. So that's Micah. He's 4. He's wears glasses. That's why he has glasses there. And that's JC. He's 6, and he's special needs in a local school district. And yeah, we have fun. So today we're going to talk about Create Good. It's a framework we've developed. Story, design, action, and tools. Most of you are here because you want to talk about tools, and you thought that that's what we're going to spend the whole time on. It's not true. Tools are by far the least important part of this whole process. It's not about tools. When someone calls your office, what do you send them to? Where do you send them? You're the receptionist, where do you send them?
What do they want? I know, it's like who they ask for.
Yeah. So you don't send them to the phone department then, you're telling me?
Yeah,
Okay. What if they email you? Then where do you send them?
it depends on what they want.
So wait, you're telling me you don't send them to the email department?
Yeah.
But I'm confused because everybody calls me every day and says, we need help with social media. We need help with Twitter. We need a Twitter guy. We need a Facebook guy. We need a website guy. You're telling me with the rest of your departments, with the rest of your communications, you're not sending them to a specific person who knows how to use a tool? I'm so confused already. This is going to be a hard day. Okay. I'm kidding. Hopefully you caught that. I've got a really dry sense of humor and I'm a jerk. So it's going to be a tough day for you. I apologize already. So, but today I want you guys to bug me. I want you to ask me questions and I want you to answer questions. I'm going to have a lot for you. The only way this is going to be good is if you guys are engaged in answering the questions. Otherwise it's going to be really dry and boring, as you can tell because of my demeanor. So bug me, ask me questions, help contextualize this for your neighbor, help contextualize it for me, because I don't know each and every one of your organizations as well as I should to really be helping you. So I need your help. Go.
When someone calls you, where do you send them?
Either myself or my receptionist, because that's all I have. We're really small. It's either me or my assistant, that's it. So let's talk about story a little bit. Stories around the campfire, you get that? Did that click? So why should we tell stories? So the best leaders, almost without exception, and at every level, are master users of stories and symbols. That was a guy, Thomas Peters. Honestly, I don't know much about him. He wrote a book or two. But this quote is awesome. You could follow up his stuff, but it won't really help you much. I tried. I thought, oh, I love this quote. I'm going to research this guy. He's going to be my new hero, and not so much. But this is an amazing quote. So, oops, that's, sorry, I hit the wrong button. I get confused really easy. I'm not super smart, so this is going to be tough today.
There you go.
But so deep-seated in each human is this desire to belong. And stories help people connect with your mission in ways statistics never could. Stories allow you to tap into pain points. They allow you to help understand what your organization solves like no other method. Telling a single personal story with a real photo attached can have more of an impact than any other self-promotional media creation you can imagine. Now, this is going to sound weird from kind of the media creation people and the marketing people, that it's not about your glossy brochure, it's actually about that story. How many of you remember going to McDonald's as a kid? Okay, you can raise your hand, it's okay, you don't have to be embarrassed about that. Anyone want to share a memory of going to McDonald's as a kid? So statistics are meaningless without stories. And we know that stories persuade better than statistics, you guys shared that, but more importantly, stories actually give meaning to statistics. McDonald's tells us all the time about their 1 billion hamburgers sold. Does anyone care?
No.
Raise your hand if you care that they sold 1 billion hamburgers. Okay, thank you. Wait, was that a hand raise?
I do care, that's kind of cool.
So we got one. It's okay.
That's a story in and of itself. Yeah, part of the
Yeah, it is. It's true. It's not something that most people can really connect with, can really identify with. 1 billion is such a huge number that it's really hard to contextualize into your daily life anyway. And so that's one of the reasons that I think that a lot of times the statistics we share don't connect. So imagine for a second with me, and I want you to close your eyes and really, really think about this. How many of you are parents real quick? Okay, how many of you have parents? Awesome, so you should all be able to relate. Perfect. So close your eyes for a second and imagine with me that a commercial. Fade in from black. You've got a parent sitting there recounting fondly, remembering when their parent was still alive, taking them to their very first McDonald's trip. Just think about that for a second. Now, we zoom back in, and all of a sudden we see that parent taking their child now to their very first McDonald's trip. Just think about that for a second. They're enjoying their very first Happy Meal. Picture the kid's face. What is he thinking about as he takes that very first bite of those chicken nuggets with the honey, and he's ripping open that toy? And what does that kid's expression look like? Now suddenly you end that commercial with 1 billion hamburgers served, and it's no longer a meaningless statistic. It's no longer just a number. Suddenly you're transformed into a world where there are 1 billion happy memories. There are 1 billion stories of people going after the game. There's 1 billion stories of people going after the game. You guys' stories had a lot in common. I just realized that after I said it. But there are these 1 billion happy memories of families celebrating, friends celebrating. How much more meaningful is that? How much more of an impact? Who thinks 1 billion hamburgers served is more meaningful than 1 billion happy memories? Anyone? No. That's what I was hoping you guys would answer. Thank you. Now, even you? Okay, just checking. Even just checking.
She still likes the number.
That's okay. It's okay. Because you have the number. See, the important thing is the statistics derive new and much more valuable, much more impactful, much more meaningful meaning. Much more meaningful meaning. I'm a terrible public speaker, evidently. But you develop this incredible meaning around that number. So the statistics, they have to be said, especially in the nonprofit world. We have to talk about how many homeless people there are, how much the budget is being cut in arts funding, how much public health is an issue. We need to talk about all those things, but if we don't wrap them in something that gives it meaning, that makes it stick, it is meaningless and it doesn't stand out to people. People won't remember the numbers that you tell them, but they'll remember that story and they'll remember that there was a whole lot more of them. So, Anne already hit on this. Start with why. Stories are a way to start with why. The statistic, again, it doesn't mean anything until we put that why to it. And so we tell that story, and that gives us the why that the number is meaningful. And so you're going to hear this phrase over and over and over again today. And that's a good thing, because you need to understand it. And so there's actually going to be a couple more times that even I'm going to tell you, start with why. So I want you to understand that. A lot of times when we're talking about storytelling, people get nervous one way or the other. They either want to make up stuff so that they can try to trigger emotional responses, or they are nervous about the emotional responses and they try to dry it up and gloss over the nitty-gritty, the painful stuff. How many of your organizations work with pain ever? Anybody hurt in your organization ever? Or hurt because of the things your organization works on? I only see a couple hands. That's weird, because I know some of the organizations that are here and what they work on. So there's pain. It might not be physical pain, but it's emotional pain. It's the pain of loss. It's the pain of all sorts of things. There's a lot of pain. And just that's what we're out to stop in most cases, or help deal with. But leaders want to edit and censor, exaggerate stories to trigger more or less emotional responses. And a lot of tragic consequences can occur. We'll see people hold back on emotional language to focus in on reason and dispassionate arguments. And it feels authentic and cold and uncaring. Or they'll change facts, highlight irrelevant details, all in an attempt to whip the listener into an emotional frenzy. And both of these types of manipulation can come across inauthentic, and a reputation for dishonesty will destroy your credibility. Technology is pushing a transparency envelope further and further, and if you have something to hide, it's going to get called out. And so telling these stories can help you even to deal with difficult information a lot of times. How many of you have several committees or steps and approval processes for all public messaging?
Good question.
Only one. Come on now.
Two.
It's okay. How many? It's okay. How
Four.
many people are between you and the final message? You know, it's okay. It's true. It's normal. It's okay. Don't feel bad about it. You know, but we want to make sure everything's safe, and stories don't always allow for that, and that's one of the reasons that we don't hear nearly enough of it in marketing. I worked with one large organization, a big nonprofit, to develop a series of videos recently. And the raw footage was amazing. Brought tears to my eyes, and I'm pretty cynical because I do this stuff for a living, so I see these stories on a daily basis. But we had one mom share how she nearly killed herself before finding this organization. And this wasn't a mental health agency even. This was not an organization who typically dealt in stuff like that. But this organization had such a profound impact in her life that she did not go that direction. She went a completely different direction. Their family was transformed. Amazing story of life transformation and great stuff, all because of this organization. If you saw that video today, it sounds like this. This program was great. I liked it a lot. Because we had 7 or 8 layers of, well, we don't want to talk about that. That's a little too rough. That's a little too raw. That's a little exploitative that she started to shed a tear as she talked about the impact our organization had in her life. Of her own accord, she willfully said, I would love to talk about how awesome this organization is, but it was exploitative to share that she cried. We ended up with, this organization is great. I liked it a lot. Nobody raised any money and they blamed us. Of course, right? Because we made the videos, so, I mean, and I'm being perfectly honest here, we don't hit 100%, we work with you guys, and that's how it goes. So nobody was happy with the end result, except for the people who approved all the footage, because they thought it was awesome. This organization is great, I liked it a lot. They were stoked to have somebody say that. Tell real stories, share real emotions, share the emotions you feel about these stories. Share about how the people in your stories felt. Authenticity can't be faked. And shared about the Sarah McLachlan disaster mode. You take that same homeless person she mentioned in the gutter where the camera always focuses right there, but it never focuses at the end. The problem though, so often is people say, oh, we can't do that, and we jump straight to the end. And we still don't have a story. Because a story has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. Stories start from that gutter place. But the real story of transformation and the impact that your organization has is that it goes from there to the other side. Suddenly, it's no longer just a homeless person in the street. It's Tom, and he's got a job, and he's got an apartment, and he's reconnecting with his family that he lost contact with years ago. How much more impactful is that? It's more impactful than the homeless person in the gutter, and it's way more impactful than, this program was great, I liked it a lot. What are the stories from your guys' day-to-day impact, day-to-day work that stand out the most to you? Just kick out a few for me. I mean, nobody ever hears those stories even within the organization. Go ahead. Any others? So one of the things we often do is we go in and we lead what we call storytelling sessions, and we make everybody come to the table, and we try to get it from people from different areas of the organization. And the reason is because you guys get burnt out. And these stories are why you do what you do oftentimes. These are the impact. Again, it's not about some micro statistic, especially in the education field. Some of the numbers, we had a 0.5% raise in test scores over the last 10 years, and everybody's excited about that, and that's hard. But when you look down at what each of those statistics represent, they represent a story just like you guys are sharing, somebody's life being transformed. And that's why we need to focus in on those stories, and we need to get them out, and we need to be regularly sharing them within our organizations, because that's the fuel for what we do. It's the impact story. It's not the 5 million people. It's the one that you do what you do for. So real quick, this isn't a homework per se. I called it homework, but start with why homework, I call it. And I want you to go out at some point over the next few months and think through this. Talk to 5 people. They can be donors, volunteers, staff, board, and figure out what the common threads are in that why question that Ann had earlier. Why do you do what you do? Why is this important? Why does this matter? And I'd be willing to bet that you will find 1 or 2 primary things that attract people to your mission that are really common across the board, across donors, across constituents, across all the different groups that your organization touches. You'll find a couple of things that really resonate. And that helps you to find the central theme of your communications. Find the central theme of the stories that you tell. The things that you find folks are most passionate about, there's going to be other people in the community who are also passionate about those things. Go figure. We all are kind of unique. We also all have a lot of similarities. We share common humanity, we share common, world we live within and stuff, and as a result, we have a lot of things that we find ourselves in agreement with others on. And so these can, once you start crafting your message around those felt needs that you've basically found by talking to people, again, old-fashioned, I know, but you can actually develop this powerful tool for persuasion because you've got what are the central themes that need to be in our stories that are going to connect with people. And this is kind of cool, but in my work with a lot of social impact leaders, I've been fortunate to meet the founders and key leaders from a lot of big organizations that are, well known and stuff. And the crazy thing is, as you talk to them, almost all of them can point to a specific moment in their life where something clicked, something changed. They tell a story about a time in their life that they went from not caring about something or not putting any meaningful attention towards it to all of a sudden having meaningful attention towards it, to something that changed. And it turns out all of you have that too. You shared it this morning with Anne when she said, why do you do what you do? You all have something personal, and I'll bet if you thought about it, that personal reason has a specific moment in time even. It's an actual story. It's not just a feeling. A couple of you even were able to articulate that story in your 15 seconds, which is awesome. If you can articulate a story in 15 seconds, you can change the world, I swear. One of my favorite nonprofits, most of you probably don't even know is a nonprofit. And the reason is because they have great communication, and so we assume that they must not be a nonprofit.
You got to point there.
The computer is there. It's so confusing. I'm so frustrated. I need to take off my jacket because I'm frustrated with the computer.
You're not sweating like I was?
No, I'm sweating too, but not because of the reason you are. I'm just getting hot. So by the end, I'll probably be half naked. Hopefully that won't bother me so much. I'm not very attractive, I get that, but it's just so that I don't die of heat stroke. So we've got this story from a guy named Matthias. He's a photographer, and I want you guys to be able to take a look at this story. So the story is personal. We learn a ton about Matthias and his personality as he tells the story. It's way more than facts. His opinion of the situation is valued and welcomed. It's what makes this a story and not an encyclopedia entry on lions. The subtext, though, is wrapped in his story. You hear the statistic, the 300 lions left. You hear the problem, and it's a subtle invitation to learn more. And here's the crazy thing. So what you don't know after watching this video is this is an internal production of National Geographic. This is actually something they get their staff to monthly deliver presentations about what they're working on. Because in your office, this is his day job. This is another day at the office for him. And yet something profound happened. And in each of your contexts, profound things happen that other people don't hear about. And so this was exactly what I'm talking about, storytelling session. Now, the other crazy thing is this was a cheap production. It's a single camera focused in on a guy on stage. It wasn't even a great camera. It's hard to tell that because we're watching it on YouTube on a projector, but it's actually a relatively modest camera if you start to analyze the actual production quality and everything. This was something that any one of you can do. Who's got a smartphone on them? Raise your hand. Almost every single one of you. Who has a flip camera or a DSLR camera? Not with them, but in general. Okay, so basically almost everybody in this room has the ability to make this video. It was not fantastic in terms of the video. It was just a good story that helped to connect data, statistics, and what it's all about. There it is. So stories have heroes. That's something that a lot of times we miss when we tell stories in our organizations. A lot of times we tell a story from point A to point B, but we miss that one of the fundamental elements of a story is that there's a hero. You've got to establish a likable hero. Remember, I'm not the hero, you're not the hero. In most cases, whoever your audience is should be the hero. For most organizations, that's the donor. Sometimes it's even in a grant-type driven situation, that's still the donor. The donor just happens to be an institution. Sometimes that's going to be customers when you're talking about symphonies trying to sell tickets or things like that, or you talked about some business goals earlier, and so but whoever the target audience is has to be the hero of your story. And a lot of times in something like this, that's kind of tough to establish, but you can easily show that the work is funded by nobody goes out to take those photos without people backing them, and so the hero of the story are the people who back them. And so Anything, though, that happens in your organization can be kind of interesting for those who are not, especially if you establish a good hero. Heroes will encounter roadblocks. Heroes will emerge transformed. The stories are inspirational. Nonprofits tell what, they don't tell why. But what isn't inspirational? Anyone who's telling a good story is likely hitting their budget numbers. Anyone who's not is probably failing at telling good stories. Honestly, I believe it's as strong and simple as that. Like, great stories, you'll start to hit the numbers that you need, whether that's volunteers, whether that's grants, whether that's sales. If you're telling a great story, people want to get engaged, and all you have to do is connect them to the right spot. You got to remember, are you fighting poverty, or are you building a better life for those impacted by poverty? Are you providing education to a neighborhood with awful test scores, or are you giving vision to multiple generations to strive for something that they've never achieved before? Is your organization providing a single night of shelter for an evicted family, or are you providing tools for life transformation? Are you providing fiscal sponsorship, or are you providing a platform for innovators to transform lives and change the world? Same thing, but it's what is the story you're telling. You were started to change the world. At some capacity, at some level, your organization was started to change the world. This is the story you got to tell. Design, this is one that scares people. This is the next section. If you have, there's actually a little brochure that kind of goes through a couple of my bullet points. You don't need to look at it, I don't care. You never have to look at it. I was told people like paper. It's weird to me, like to minimize paper, but I thought you guys might want a couple of my bullet points or whatever. Again, there's no stories in it. It's a terrible brochure. I apologize. But in many organizations, design budgets are tight. Oftentimes, you don't have a professional or skilled designer around. That's okay. Great design doesn't have to have a ton of technical skill behind it. When you don't have a designer on staff, you don't have the budget to go out and hire a design firm, then you got to focus on simplicity, and it's hard to mess up a minimalist approach to design if you can stick to minimalism. By being consistent with colors, typefaces, language, applying a couple, those types of things, you can actually have a really strong brand presence without blowing the budget. It's important, though, that design goes beyond logos and graphics. You've got to break up long blocks of text with headings, pictures, videos. Apply the simple approach to more than just the look. Use design thinking with your content as well. Assume folks don't know much about your product or service. Avoid insider lingo. Yeah, nonprofits, I'm talking to you. Avoid insider lingo, even when you're talking about grants and stuff, because a lot of times those people don't work at your organization. They don't know the insider lingo. Define new terms. If you're going to introduce a term to somebody that you don't think they know, define it right off the bat. That's actually an element of design, because otherwise people are confused, and confused people don't give. They don't keep reading, they don't come back, they don't click again. You lose them. As soon as you confuse them, you lose them. You could write that down if you want. As soon as you confuse them, you lose them. Eventually I'm going to release like a debut album, and it's going to have that as like a rap song. It's going to be awesome. Lots of auto-tune. So stay away from acronyms. And again, I'm speaking to a nonprofit world, so I'm going to say this one more time and really loud. Stay away from acronyms. Say it with me. Stay away from acronyms. One more time, stay away from acronyms, please.
Okay, I'm done.
So the magazine ad earlier that Ann shared, it focused on good design over good grammar. That was one of the big things that I noticed. If you looked at the magazine, they used all caps when they needed to. They used all lowercase when they needed to. They used incomplete sentences, and there was no periods or commas on the entire page. The other one couldn't even get a single word over the picture without a period. They had to add the period to the end. Why did they have a period after hope? Why not just hope? No, hope, period. And then followed by lots and lots of complete sentences, lots and lots of paragraphs. It may have been focused on different areas, and that's good, but it wasn't well designed, and that's bad. And that's why so often people say, well, they're different, they're different, they're different. The messaging is different. But good design doesn't have to be different. You can still have something that does look good. It just has to look good and be appropriate to the audience, be appropriate to the mission, be appropriate to the strategy, be appropriate to the cause. Approach every decision you make with design thinking in mind. And this even comes back to Cousin Joe. He has to have strict guidelines. He has to follow the brand standards. Do you have brand standards? Raise your hand if you have brand standards. About half. That is way better than almost every other place I've ever delivered this talk. You guys rock. Favorite group of nonprofits I've ever worked with already. But the other problem is oftentimes it's not Cousin Joe, it's Uncle Joe, and he's a board member. And he's got 60 years marketing experience 20 years ago, and he thinks he's the expert, and you guys are looking at it and saying, well, that was right back when TVs had tubes, but we need to do things a little differently these days because there's new, and he's still saying that social media is a fad, blogging's a fad. He's telling you that your 90% of your budget should be on direct mail because that's what worked for him back in the 60s. And Uncle Joe is a much more terrifying animal than Cousin Joe. So it's more than pretty colors. It's simple, it's elegant, it's sustainable. You have to be able to approach everything you do, not just when you make a brochure, but everything you do with what is the simplest, most elegant, and most sustainable way to reach this goal. And that's how you develop your strategic plans. That's how you develop everything that you do. That's how you develop your website. Please, please, please hear me when I say your website should be simple, elegant, and sustainable. Don't develop a website that has 15 blogs because you heard blogging was important and have no writers. It's got to be sustainable. That's important. It doesn't matter if you have a blog or 15 blogs if nobody's blogging. So develop it in a way that's simple, elegant, and sustainable. Simple doesn't always mean easy. That scares people sometimes. They think, oh, well, you know, this was hard. Oh my gosh. And then they quit. But when you arrive at a strategy that yields great results with minimal friction, you'll be glad you spent time to come up with not just a pretty solution, not just the right colors, not just the right picture, but actually one that's well designed. One of my favorite nonprofit ads in history actually came from Charity Water. They took a plate, they set it down on a table, they threw some dry, uncooked spaghetti, and they dumped sauce on it, and they said, water changes everything. And then they slapped their logo in the corner along with their website. Start with why. Again, I told you, I'm going to say it a lot.
There.
Effective communicators know how to prepare a message with a singular and crystal clear focus, except for me. If you know where you're going, you can take people with you. If you aim at nothing, this is so cliche, I hate saying it, you will hit it every time. If you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time. Most people don't have a plan, so all the great strategy, all the great communications, they don't have goals, so their communications look awesome until you realize that they're not helping them hit their goals because they don't have goals. Effective communicators can read the audience, they can market the market, they're able to customize a message to make the audience want to listen. I'll write this down, it's important. Until the audience is engaged, communication is not taking place. I want you to say it with me. Until the audience is engaged, communication is not taking place. I saw a couple of your mouths were moving. We're going to do it one more time. Until the audience is engaged, communication has not taken place. Now, the reason that I wanted you to say it with me is because it reinforces the point. Until you're actually engaged, communication hasn't taken place. Now, how many of you could say it without me? Not a single one? No. Oh, show of hands. How many could you say that sentence without me? Okay, that's half. I'm doing okay. I'm going to try one more. No, just kidding. I'll let you guys off the hook. An engaging message can put people on the edge of their seats. Effective communicators will be passionate about their subject. They'll pour every part of their being into a message. If the subject's not worthy of your passion, then send it out in a memo. You don't need to focus in on every message with these huge plans and everything, because some of these things can just go out in memos. They're not important. What is it that you're passionate about? What is it that your organization's passionate about? What is it that your audience is passionate about? That's where you want to focus your communications budgets. I know that's scary. And your communications time and effort and energy. Who can tell me what a hook is? Without looking up there, sorry. Who can tell me what a hook is?
Action.
So, everybody knows what a hook is. Now, how many know how to make a good hook? And we're leaving fishing and going back to the actual, sorry. You know, we're not forging it with fire or anything. So, great hooks are exact, they're intriguing, they're authentic. How do you make a great hook? Make it exact. Good hooks will start with specific concepts. They'll provide tangible solutions to market and emotional needs. A market need is a problem that needs to be addressed. An emotional need is kind of that gut feeling. It's often fear. It's often pain that drives your audience. Always ask yourself, what problem does our idea solve? And so your idea is going to vary depending on the context of your organization. But yeah, I know. Make it intriguing. Offer just enough to capture a person's interest. Don't waste time explaining every concept, every idea. Raise questions rather than answering them. Hooks intrigue people and make them come back for more. This is especially important when you're talking about your acquisition. You want to send out the direct mailer, and as a postcard, I know this is how you guys like to operate. I hate direct mail, but if you're going to send out a direct mailer, make it intriguing, draw them in so they hit your website, and so they keep coming back because your website offers more and more compelling content and keeps them coming back. Make it authentic. The hook needs to be indigenous to you and indigenous to your audience. One of the reasons our firm is often engaged is because people are taking a look at their legacy donors and they're seeing that they're aging out, for lack of a better term. They are aging out of being able to give. And so they're looking at, they don't have a great acquisition strategy for next-gen donors. And next-gen, for most organizations, isn't 18 to 24. Like sometimes people are like, we need it's like baby boomers. They don't have a strategy to capture baby boomers because their strategy was for people older than that. And so you gotta make it indigenous though. Don't come up with these silly kind of cliche, this is what the kids like type campaigns. They don't work. They're inauthentic. Make it authentic. The great concept may not work with different audiences, that's true, but you do need to make sure that it's indigenous to the audience. So the keys to great communications, you've got to obsess about your vision. Start with vision. Make it emotional, aspirational. Make it tweetable. I know everybody hates me. Make it tweetable. Make it short. Make it easy to understand. Make it easy to send out and share. With a compelling vision, all kinds of people will want to help you. Supporters, funders, social media people, celebrities, donors, funders, organizations, corporate sponsors. Get your one-pager done. In fact, go beyond that and have a one-paragraph or have a one-sentencer. Have a 5 to 7 worder. And I know that's hard to say, but have easy, ready-to-go-to solutions to answer people's questions. A lot of times people say, what do you do? And you ramble. Have that, they call it the elevator pitch, but have that basic one-pager that you can put at the beginning of your grant applications and things like that, but also have these different things that can fit in different places and different settings. Because then when you go to start some new social media page or start a new brochure or start a new anything, you've got the answers that's been already well thought through and well answered, so you're consistent across the board. One of the hardest ones, I think, is defining the problem. Oftentimes people make the problem homelessness, to use one popular example. If the problem is homelessness, how do you stop homelessness? That's a hard conversation to have. So define the problem narrowly, define what is the problem that you're solving and how are you solving it. Especially for maybe more difficult to understand organizations, larger organizations with lots of programs, organizations trying to do something that hasn't been done a million times before. You've got to be able to define the problem narrowly, do it with a combination of stories, facts, and stats. Know yourself. This, again, is extremely hard and ties into the last one. You need to know who you are as a person, who your organization is as an organization. You need to understand those things really clearly, know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, and find people. Don't do things you're not good at. Please don't do things you're not good at. Please don't build a website if you're not good at it. Please don't make the brochure if you're not good at it. And don't let your volunteers do it if they're not good at it. That's just, it's simple. And one thing I'll say is, simple doesn't mean dumbed down. A lot of times people make their donors out to be stupid. But again, transparency is being pushed so far by technology. If you tell me something that's not true or that's really, really dumbed down, and I'm going to find out in 30 seconds just by searching online. I've got my phone. I'll do it. Anyone want to give me a bad fact? No. So I'm just saying we can find it out quick. So technology is pushing the transparency envelope. In the real world, impact is complicated, and people understand that. And if they don't, they're not going to be your target audience, and that's okay. Not everybody is. Again, we need to narrowly define those audiences. Basically, great design incorporates a strong visual identity, a compelling message, appropriate hooks, and a solid understanding of who you are, why you're here, and where you're going. Action. Clear calls to action are so important. Effective communicators won't leave an audience in doubt about how to benefit from the objective of the message. They'll call people to action. They make it easy to respond. Understanding your audience is key, and then you tailor a message to them. Clear calls to action. Buy now, donate now, join us for, volunteer today. People are scared to ask for what they want. In today's world, though, people are skimming your content. If you don't have those clear calls to action, they miss it. It might seem like a nice way to avoid turning people off, But if you ask them and they say no, and you still have compelling content, a great story, they'll keep reading even if they're not quite ready to make that decision yet. So you can ask and then move on to tell them a great story. Action, though, is more than just calling people to action. It means being people of action, being organizations of action, snapping pictures and videos from your phone, spending time on the front lines of your cause, putting in the hard work. Those looking for the 4-hour work week, they can probably look elsewhere. To create a culture around your brand, you've got to be in the middle of that culture. You've got to have those touch points at every level of the organization. And yeah, that's big. So action is doing it wrong quickly. Sometimes this is called fail fast. Do stuff. Get out there, try some things. Sometimes they're going to fail, and that's okay, because that's what it takes to innovate. That's what it takes to create change. Sometimes it means doing stuff that doesn't work. But yeah, put it up, see what sticks, optimize based on data. So try a new, micro test your campaigns, things like that, so you can fail quick. Don't spend 6 figures putting out your next direct mailer only to find out that it's terrible. Test. Action means experimenting. It's about thoughtful and strategic experiments to get the information that directs your business. Sometimes it'll be messy, but that's okay. That's what it takes to really move forward and to really have great messaging, is that constant testing, constant experimenting. Action also means measuring the right thing. One of the hugest frustrations with the nonprofit marketing data that Ann shared earlier was somebody said, a lot of people said, the inability to measure effectiveness was a problem for them. Then they're doing it wrong. That's why it's a problem, because they're doing something wrong. If they're not measuring what they're doing, they're not doing it right. You have to find how to measure. It's not about what you put into the process or what came out of the process, but rather the real outcomes. More likes on Facebook are worthless. More views on your website are worthless. It's about more engagement, more volunteers, more awareness, more donations. It's about all those things that you say are the goal. So you actually measure the goal, not all the little things that happen along the way. And the nonprofit community loves to measure the process. This is how many baskets of food we distributed, rather than this is how many people are no longer hungry. That's a dramatic difference, because you can pass out lots and lots of baskets for food to the wrong audience, and all of a sudden you've got all these people who are still hungry, but a whole bunch of people who are selling food out of the back of their van. That happens. It happens a lot. Go. Action's important. It's not about constant work or doing everything yourself, but about being the kind of organization and the kind of people whose leaders feel the pulse of what's going on. You understand what's happening. You know about the problem in that department because you spent time in that department talking to the people who work in that department, no matter at what level of the organization you're at. You know your donors are connecting with your website because you've asked for feedback with them. And that could be on Twitter, that could be on Facebook, that could be over a cup of coffee. Again, it's not about the tool, but about what you're doing with the tool and how you're using the tool and how it fits in with your strategy. The last section, this one's pretty quick, because if you picked up on anything that I said over the last hour, it was that the tools aren't what matters. So the right tools, if you want to pick the right tool, it's figuring out your strategy and finding the tools that are aligned with that strategy. That's, if you walk away with nothing else from everything I said, I think this is the key point. The right tools are the ones that are aligned to your strategy. If you don't have a strategy, then this whole conversation is worthless and meaningless. Whether or not you use Twitter doesn't matter if you don't have goals for Twitter and how it impacts your organization and the goals of your organization. It's not about the tools you choose, but the story you tell. Your website should be the main focus of your web strategy. That's kind of a key guideline. Anything that you do with regards to all those other things should draw people back to your website, because that's what you own and control. And if you spent $1 million on MySpace 5 years ago in getting your brand presence up on MySpace, today you are out of luck. I had a different phrase in mind, but I'm trying to be good here. You are out of luck. So if you get that, great. But how do you move them from MySpace to your website? Because you're never going to have a point where you're not in control and owning your website. Did you have a question, or were you just touching your hair? Yeah, you did one of these, but I wasn't sure. If you're talking about print, anything that can be story-driven should be the main focus, because again, that's what you can own and control. That's where you can. So you can do 17 million mail campaigns a year. I think it's crazy. You can watch it on a graph. Dollars spent versus dollars raised, it's going down and down and down. But you can still say mail campaigns still are effective, especially if you have great databases and an older donor set. So make sure that it can be story driven for your main focus. Everything else should point people to the story, to the website, to the world is moving online. It's time to get a strategy in place to get your legacy donors to engage online. Your direct mailer should point people back online. This is a contentious issue, I know, and we don't have time to tackle all the issues, but the world is moving that direction. Not everybody's there yet, but the world is moving that direction, and I don't see in the foreseeable future people suddenly saying, you know, this internet thing was kind of a fad. Because, I mean, right now your toaster probably has Wi-Fi, you know? Like, this is actually happening. CES this year, the Consumer Electronics, they have toasters that tweet at CES this year. Yes, I'm dead serious. If you want your toaster to tell you when it's on when you leave the house, you can set that so when you get X number of feet from your house, the toaster will say, hey, it's still on, and it'll send you a tweet.
Wrong. That's
So,
just wrong.
anyway, my point is, regardless, that's the way the world, that's the way things are moving, and if you don't react to culture, you are no longer a part of that culture. Like, you lose the right to speak into the culture if you can't engage the culture. You just lose it. So the world is moving online. Again, you've got to have a strategy in place to acquire and cultivate new donors online, no matter who you are, no matter what type of donors you're looking at. And lastly, and this is for that 50% of the audience who said they were primarily major donor, grant maker type funding, grant makers are overwhelmingly human. Almost everyone I've met is a human. Almost everyone I've met cares about their job, cares about their image, cares about their presentation, likes things that look nice. They're all human, and so these things apply to you, even if you don't think they do. They do it because they want to make an impact in the community, but they also do it because they want to look good in the community. And so if you are well known, you are a better choice than the organization who's doing the same work. Not to say if your organization's doing terrible work, but looks pretty, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you're doing great work and this one's doing great work, but this one looks 10 times better than you, this one wins. Yep. That's it. So, that's it.
Yay, Scott. I want you to know that Scott crammed 3 hours of presentation into one. So.